Hey guys, this is KSP with Tape, and today you join me for episode 3 of Rescaled Kerbin Project Moon. And I start just by deorbiting this piece of space junk with the tiny amount of fuel it has left, and now that it is done, it will fall back to Kerbin. But the main point of today is sending a satellite out to the moon, and to do that I need to put a few satellites into a high orbit around Kerbin, or fairly high, not geostationary, because I'm still figuring that out. But anyway, I'm going to put 2 satellites in to help me figure out where the ascending node is, because I have to launch. Oh, how do I explain this? Well, basically, I have to, because the moon is inclined in Rescaled Kerbin, or it's actually realistic solar system is actually what the mod's called. But anyway, I need to know exactly. I need to basically launch at ascending node so that I can launch at about 22 degrees off 90. To be in line with the moon, and I have to launch at the right time so that my orbit isn't like completely way off the moon. It's more of a visual explanation, which I don't think I do brilliantly in this. But anyway, I'm just going to launch these to about 5 million meters. This is a heavier launch vehicle because it's a very small satellite, but getting it up into a higher orbit is slightly difficult, and I've packed it with a lot of delta V. Those boosters would, well, I was going to use my spacecraft I used for my last my launch vehicle I used for the manned capsule, but I kind of feel, well, I want to be doing as realistic things as possible, so not like things that are asparagus to hell, but I do use that launch vehicle for the Lunar satellite, which is in this episode. Yeah. But anyway, I've got all my MechJeb stuff open, the vessel info, the orbit info, and the Delta V stats, and the far flight systems. And we're hitting Mach 7.5. This is at like 2 times time accelerator, I think. Nice explosion there, nothing's wrong. That's just that's a thing. That's just yeah, that was just an explosion. But anyway, I'm going to try 2 launch paths. One you will see, one you won't, because I don't want to leave 2 of this basically the same launches in one episode. This one I actually screwed up a little bit. I went too steep. And then what I do is I burn more upwards to push my apoaps around, and that's what you kind of have to do when getting into a high orbit like this. That's basically what I've been experimenting with, is just different ways to get into high orbits, and basically what seems best is to push your apoaps all the way around with one burn, not like circularize, then go out there. So the actual launch vehicle gets up to just above normal orbital velocity. So it's not actually technically in orbit because it has a higher apoaps and a negative periaps, I think, is where the launch vehicle leaves it. But it is at up to orbital velocity, and then the probe itself has a lot of delta V, tiny engines, and doesn't weigh much at all. So that actually gets itself into an orbit. It's kind of, yeah. I was trying to justify this as a realistic mission to myself, basically, because I've really hated doing things where it's just, I think what makes the game fun for me is trying to do something realistic, and maybe too much, because I kind of like stop having fun when I'm just building something that is just the kind of cheating. So yeah, this launch vehicle basically gets it into orbit, and then the spacecraft itself pushes it out. Yeah, and that's justifiable enough for my craziness. Anyway, we're going to put the apoaps and periaps at about 5 million meters. This one doesn't quite make it. It gets the apoaps to about 5 million meters, and the periaps to about 4.6 million meters. So yeah, it's pretty good. And the next one gets pretty much perfect because I use a slightly different ascent profile and figure that out. That's yeah, I suppose I could call this ascent profile testing. But what it is really is me just messing around with rockets. Anyway, it does have solar panels because it will need power for something. Actually, it technically won't, because I'm using most of the satellites I've launched just as a test space for maneuver nodes, really. But it's nice to make them look realistic. So I try to put like scientific equipment on it and stuff. But what I am having, well, not trouble with, I just haven't really tried that much, but what I'm worrying about a little is getting actual mass to orbit, because the most I've got to orbit is about 5 tons, and the thing that goes out to the moon, very small, less than the Endeavour craft I launched last time, when this is Kerbinic Mark III. All of my satellites, I don't think I've mentioned the name, but there was Kerbinic R2, which was the first one, which was Kerbin Mark 1 Release Candidate 2. The launch vehicle was the Release Candidate 2. And then Kerbin Mark 2 as opposed to R2. And then Kerbin Mark 3, which you see now. And then I think I called the lunar satellite Deimos something. But anyway, this is now in orbit, stable orbit, but not completely circular. That's fine. It'll serve its purpose. It's just basically making sure that the space center is below the maneuver node, or at the maneuver node of the moon, so that I can launch into the moon's orbit easily. Anyway, let's skip out the next launch, shut down those engines, and cut right to getting the second probe into orbit. A little behind the first probe, just so I can kind of have more flexibility. And we're just pushing our orbit out, and that is around 5 million meters at both points. And I'm just warping a little forward so I can launch my... What was I going to say? I don't know, so I can circularize properly. I don't know how I forgot what I was going to say. I don't know, I'm just terrible with words all the time. Anyway, that's 5 million at both ends, which is good and satisfying. And it does have a tiny amount of fuel left, not enough to do anything. God, my whole desk just slipped then. I'm leaning on it and it just all slipped and it was, jeez. Yeah. Anyway, extend the communicatron something 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 and orbit around to the day to take a look at the satellite you have already seen. Anyway, now it's time to go to the moon. And I do skip this launch out because I have already done a launch in this episode. I try not to fill my episodes with launches. Oh, the sound is on for this one. What the hell? I'll just turn my speakers down. And you will, if you have seen the last episode, you have already seen this launch vehicle launch. And if you haven't seen the last episode, you could go watch it. That'd be cool. If you want to, or maybe you're just interested in the moon, because this is going to the moon. Basically, this rocket, if you don't know it, has a main core and then 2 stages of boosters feeding into it. That was annoying. It just like it jolted on the playback, and that's bad because it desynchronizes my thing. Anyway, and then the boosters drop away like 4x4, so it's 2-stage booster system. Anyway, now we're above. Yeah, now we're above Kerbin, circularizing. And now we are basically in orbit, but the periaps is in the atmosphere, so I will need to warp around and correct my periaps. I did actually do this launch pretty well. I was pretty happy. I got it to within 1.4 degrees on launch, which was a pretty big achievement considering I've never actually launched in the plane of the moon before. Yeah. So, and it does have about 533 delta V left, so I'm going to circularize and then fix my inclination to within 0.1 degrees of the moon's orbit. And then, and I could actually use the fuel. There is a little bit of fuel left over on this stage. I think I pulled the wrong thing on the maneuver node there. I wasn't noticing at the time, but I was pulling the blue bit, not the green bit. The prograde and retrograde. I don't know what the blue indicators are actually called, because there's prograde, retrograde, normal, anti-normal, and then the other two, up and down, basically. Yeah. Anyway, there is actually about like a little bit of delta V left in there, a little bit of fuel left in this current stage for my burnout to the moon, but I don't use it because I don't need it. And it is very important that each stage does its bit, does its job, because then I know it works, then I know everything works. And each stage usually has a little bit of delta V left over, just in case something goes wrong. And that is how I tried to design the spacecraft for this series, because I don't want stuff just completely not working. And I have started to notice that my recording's a few seconds behind my video, so if I'm slightly out of sync, I am sorry. But my normal editing software has just stopped working, and now I'm using freaking Windows Movie Maker, and I can't stand it. And if you have too much data, and Fraps files are huge, so like it jolts up, and it's just awful. So I think I'm maybe 3 seconds behind right now, so I'm a little sorry about that, but it's fine. It should be. I will talk very generically about what's happening on screen right now. There is Kerbin on screen, and an orbital indicator on screen. Oh, now there's not. Damn, it's screwed up. I'm not talking generally enough. There is space on screen. There is a spacecraft probably on screen. Yeah, okay, no. Anyway, what what am I doing? Oh yeah, now I'm moving round to... Oh, I skipped ahead there. Yeah, that's cool. And now I'm fixing my inclination. And kind of a 2-stage burn, just to make sure nothing's going wrong. And, oh yeah, more like a 3-stage burn. I just basically tried to keep as close to the little maneuver indicator as possible, although it's probably not that important, but this is space travel, it's all very accurate. And I can't really use MechJeb to do it, because MechJeb's not programmed for 10 times the size of Kerbin. Yeah, it's programmed for normal Kerbin. Anyway, we are now skipping ahead to the burn out to the moon, the first Kerbal made thing ever to go to the moon, and we will ditch that stage even though it has fuel for reasons explained earlier. And now this stage is actually much more than I thought it would be. So this whole spacecraft weighs like 3.5 tons. And I do want to be getting heavier things to orbit. I think I'm working on something like a 20-ton launch vehicle right now, in a kind of a Falcon Heavy type setup. Hopefully not using the big 3.5 meter parts, because I'm going to be using them for the moon, for the actual Apollo mission. So I want to be able to do stuff without them, so that when it comes to like 100 tons of launch vehicle, I can actually do it. But I am really trying to cut down mass on the LEM and the Odyssey and just everything. So much so that I've actually I'm going to be testing like every little bit, like how little RCS I can use to flip the Odyssey around to dock to the LEM, because I'm going to do this like as close to Apollo as possible without the launch vehicle being the same. The launch vehicle will be quite different, with the exception that it will be a 3-stage rocket, but it will have boosters of a liquid-fueled variety. But in the real Apollo mission, the main spacecraft, the Odyssey, would be in front of the LEM, which is the lander, the Lunar Excursion Module. And then when the 3rd stage had pushed it out on a trajectory to the moon, the Odyssey would detach, turn around, and dock to the LEM, so that well, for various reasons, one of which would be so that there could be an escape during launch, and then various other things. But then it would then turn around and fly back, and then the only other docking will be the LEM flying up from the moon to the Odyssey, and that'll need a bit of RCS. So I'm planning all that, trying to make it as light as possible. But anyway, I have actually completed the burn. I talked all the way through it because this is at 2 times or so time accelerate. It is at 2 times time accelerate because Windows Movie Maker can't handle 4 times time accelerate, which is great. Oh jeez, I think I'm like 5 seconds ahead now. Ooh, that's bad. I'm wondering if I could skip. Nah, it'll be fine. Anyway, I did a little bit of orbital ballet trying to get it so that when I detached, I wouldn't be within the moon's surface, but I am, so I'm just using the little engine to burn out, and then lots of little fine-tuning, so I'm just flipping the spacecraft around. And this has tons of delta V, and I only need about 700 for circularizing around the moon, but then I'll have quite a lot of delta V left, about 1,000 delta V for maneuvering around the moon and doing various tests. So I don't want to have to send endless spacecraft to the moon. I will probably be sending a lander. Not really sure how that's going to be modelled. Maybe I'll model it after the Lunar Lion spacecraft. If you watch Scott Manley, then you'll know what that is probably. It's a lunar lander, an autonomous lunar lander designed by college students in Penn State University. That's cool. Anyway, we are now around the moon, or about there, depending on how out of sync this voice is. God, I'm really paranoid about this now. A little bit. One second. Okay, I actually just paused my voice recording to try and sync it up a little bit. Maybe I'm too paranoid about this, but anyway, now we are actually burning to circularize around the moon with my 1 ant engine, which gives a surprising amount of thrust. By the way, which I didn't mention earlier on those Kerbin Mark III spacecraft I launched, with those 2 little like radial ant engines, I got about a G of acceleration. I think it was actually 0.95 G. But it's pretty good, and this does have scientific equipment on it, because obviously I will need to know about the science of the moon. I mean, this isn't in career mode because, oh god, imagine trying to do this in career mode with like Kerbal Space Program size parts, because obviously the Kerbal Space Program parts have to be scaled down in size and efficiency, which makes it very hard to do this kind of stuff. Although saying that, I've done 3 episodes of this series and I'm already like at the moon. So you know, it's not that hard. You just have to have the right mindset and really like. It does take quite a lot of time. So I've decided kind of because I'm putting quite a lot of effort into this, and Elubase is kind of slowing down. I'm not going to end the series. No, I love Elubase, but I am technically ending the series, but only series 1. There will be a series 2. I am completely stealing that idea from Hot Gaming, where he kind of is doing series 1 and series 2. But I will leave it a little bit and then come back to it. And I'll talk about that in the next episode of Elubase. But I want to kind of, I don't know, I think it's just better if I do it like that. Anyway, I'm just doing a little bit of test, and it's about minus 200 degrees, and there's a little bit of gravity. Yeah. Oh, and talking of series, I'll probably be splitting this up into series based on the missions, because I'm going to be doing this, and then I'm going to be doing the space station, as I talked about in the last episode, and then maybe something like a Mars rover, or something cool like that. But anyway, this has come to an end, or maybe the video's already ended, the stupid out of sync voicing. Anyway, yeah, so I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you're looking forward to the landing of the Lunar Excursion module on the moon. This has been KSP with Tape. I will see you next time.